breakfast. The guitarist Brian May is well known here in Surrey for more than just his work, just his work with the legendary rock band Queen. He is one of the founders of the Save Me Trust. It's an animal welfare charity based in Windlesham. But at the weekend, both the charity's headquarters and Brian's home were threatened by a devastating wildfire on nearby Chobham Common. And now, in the wake of the fire, he's described Surrey's fire service as chronically under-supported. He's been talking to me through what the whole situation was like to be so near to the blaze.
Well, I think it was a gradual process, really. You start to smell smoke, you get a little bit suspicious, and there's always lots of rumours flying around. And luckily, Anne Brummer, who runs our wildlife rescue, was able to get hold of one of the chaps who regularly helps us with such, fire advice and stuff like that. And they said, look, there is a risk and you should get your animals out. So the animals were the priority, really. And then we started to think, oh my God, if this really does go up, what does that mean?
How close did it come to your home?
It came within 1,000 metres, and at that point it was roaring and pretty much uncontrollable, and the wind was in our direction. But they did a fantastic job between the fire brigade and what helped. The maintenance people from the golf course were able to give them. They managed to stop it in its tracks.
Yeah. I mean, they're amazing. They're remarkable. So talk me through what you had to do. Were you physically having to take stuff out of the house? What were you actually doing?
Yeah, I kind of stood like a rabbit in headlights for a little while, thinking, all of this is precious. What on earth do I take? And then gradually, I guess I got some kind of vision of what was actually irreplaceable. Now, it's funny, and the way I saw it reported in the press, they sort of said, oh, Brian there in his multi-million-dollar mansion and rescuing his precious things. So you imagine all these sort of diamonds and pearls being rescued. But in fact, it's funny how it gets you. What I did was I rushed around and rescued the things that the kids had drawn for me and like puzzles and stuff that I had when I was a kid, things which I'd made at school, things that stuck in my mind. I thought, well, if this really does happen, what am I going to really shed tears about? And it wasn't anything that was actually very valuable in terms of money. It was all personal items to do with the children. It was a hard thing. The funny thing is, I'm revealing too much here, but I forgot my teddy bear.
Oh. Oh, because it's funny, isn't it? It's one of those questions that people get asked a lot. In the event of a fire, what's the first thing that you'd rescue? But until you're actually in that situation, I guess it's only then that you get that clarity of thought.
That's right. I mean, it was animals first, because we have a lot of animals in the rescue, and they would have been compromised. So they were all... Anne is great. She has backup plans for all this, and so all the animals were very quickly relocated to a safe place.
So what animals are they, Brian? What do you actually have? Paint us a bit of a picture.
Well, a lot of hedgehogs. People bring us hedgehogs, and we are, hedgehogs are us, I guess. But it varies from day to day. I mean, we have badgers, we have foxes, we have lots of different kinds of birds, bats, dormice, you name it. We have everything really at various times. And they all, 99% of them get a chance to go back out in the wild. It's only if they're really seriously injured that they have to stay in captivity.
Okay, so animals first, pictures that the kids had done secondly, forgetting the bear for the moment. And at what point was it made known that it was actually okay and that maybe you could either stop packing up the car, or had you already done that? Had you already vacated?
Well, it's never been made completely okay because there is still a risk. I went home and had a sleepless night and went back up to London. And then I came down the next morning and we walked up there to where the site of the fire is and met some of the firemen. By that time it was just smouldering and smoking, but quite a lot of smoke over a huge area. It's quite shocking to see. But I said to the guy in the fire engine, I said, well, is there still a risk? He said, there is still a massive risk. He said, and there will be until there's a torrential rainstorm. Even then, if the summer becomes hot again, then there can be a risk again. So this is something which really we all have to attune ourselves to now. The climate is changing very fast, and all sorts of things which would have been unthinkable just 10 years ago are now very much a possibility.
Yeah, and we're so used to seeing these kind of scenes on television footage from Australia and California and what have you, and it wasn't till I saw the drone footage from above that I realised quite the scale of it. What was it like for you to witness something on this scale here on your doorstep in Surrey?
Terrifying. You suddenly see, I thought we were fairly well covered. I have some archive buildings here which are purpose-built and they're temperature-controlled. This is for things like tapes and Queen product over the years. It's temperature-controlled, it's humidity-controlled, and it has a special system in to quench a fire that would happen inside without soaking everything. So, and they're strong, and I thought, well, we're pretty well covered. In the face of this advancing wall of flame, none of it would have meant anything. It would have gone straight through. You suddenly realise we had wooden doors, and I think we need a big rethink.
Yeah, quite literally tinderbox conditions, wasn't it? And what was it like when you spoke to the firefighters? Because we've heard so much about the community effort there, that people were rallying to get the firefighters food and water and all the rest of it. How were they when you saw them?
They were pretty ragged, I've got to say, but full of enthusiasm and passion for the job. It's amazing. It applies in so many areas. You need people, for every job, you need people who are not just doing the job. You need people who have a passion for it. And these guys absolutely did. But, they all, obviously none of them want to be quoted, but they all said, look, you have to realise we were severely compromised in terms of equipment and manpower because of the cuts. And it's become something, it's opened my eyes completely. We've seen that the nurses the whole National Health Service had been run down before the pandemic arrived, which is why we had such terrible losses. We've seen that the police have been underfunded, and now it's obvious that the fire brigade is chronically under-supported. And it makes me very, very upset, to be honest, and very worried for the nation. It seems like all the most important things are being neglected and cut back. They're still cutting back fire stations. And you notice in this case, the Surrey Fire Brigade was out there at full force as much as they had, but they didn't have as many fire engines as they'd had a few years ago. And a couple of the fire engines, I understand, were sitting there with nobody who was able to drive them because of the lack of manpower. So, they had to call in extra. I mean, it's wonderful that people gathered round and supported them, brought them food and drinks, but the fact that isn't built into their work programme is appalling to me. It's a very worrying situation. I do think, you've got me on it now. I think there's a grave misunderstanding at the top level in this country as to what really is important. I think so many decisions are made on the short-term basis of what effects they have on the economy, not realising that the economy means nothing if you're losing lives and health. And, you need your medical service, you need your police, you need your fire service, emergency services, or else it's all hopeless. We can't have a good standard of living if we're not healthy and we're not protected, we're not safe.
There's been such an outpouring of support from us, from members of the public during this whole pandemic, every Thursday going out clapping for frontline workers and what have you. And do you almost feel as though that gratitude has got to come from on high in a bit of a different way?
Absolutely. It would be nice if they took the cap off their wages for a start. I think it's a scandal that we're not giving all these health workers a substantial raise. I can't believe it. On the one hand, we're all applauding, yes, and on the other hand, we're saying, oh no, but we still don't want to pay you a decent wage. It's almost unthinkable to me, and it's the same in the fire service. I had no idea. Until this came up, I thought, oh, we're really well covered. There's fire stations everywhere. Well, if you look carefully, many of the fire stations are being closed at this point. And it's at a time when the risk is becoming greater. The actual force we have in place is getting less, and the risk is increasing.
That's Brian May, the Brian May, actual Brian May. Big hair, good at the guitar, Brian May.